So 50,000 white people.
Oh my god.
Which, by the way, is 49,000 more than I ever want to see in one place. 49,900 more than I ever want to see in one place.
Exactly.
We're at the game, and this turned into complete mayhem. It turned into a riot. 39 people were arrested because it did turn into a full-blown riot because everybody was rushing the field.
I'm obsessed. Hell yeah.
And you know white people. They came running down to the field. They got their records, but it's not enough. It's like, while we're on the field, let's steal some shit. Let's fuck some shit up. You know, and they were trying to steal the bases off the field.
Do it, girl.
And
get that base,
became
honey.
such a mess that the White Sox actually had to forfeit the second game. This was a 2-game thing. Right. Well, when he was later asked about it, he, of course, was like, it wasn't racist. It wasn't, I just didn't like any of that black music. Well, he didn't actually say that.
Black music.
His wife, this is her quote. He felt lost in a culture of women's lib, black rights, sexual liberation, and Studio 54 inspired androgyny and materialism. Nope. No problematic stuff there.
Why is he crying about that, though? Like, that's
because he's
the
white.
Dream. Do you know what I mean? If I could just live in that kind of utopia of just, like, multicultural queerism, bitch, it's a party.
Well, yes, but disco was specifically created by and for people who felt the same disregard
othered
by white rock and roll culture. So these people who had always felt like they were in the shadow of that were like, we're doing this.
Right.
And it caught on. It became huge. And bands who would ordinarily be more rock and roll or more something else started doing disco. Even Kiss did a disco song.
I love that.
So, and had a big hit with it. And all these people, but then there were artists who strictly were disco.
Yeah.
The Village People.
Right.
Donna Summer. Gloria Gaynor. All these people who came out and did specifically disco music. The Bee Gees. But the Bee Gees are a different story because they had been around forever. They were British kind of pop.
Okay.
And then with the release of the soundtrack of Saturday Night Fever, they did the bulk of the soundtrack. And so I think everything they did on there became a hit. Not my favorite. I'm not a fan of the white men singing falsetto.
No, it's not. No,
it's just
Justin
not my
Timberlake,
gig.
Sit down.
It's not really my gig.
No. I want to touch on something that you said about people, the White Sox game and everyone bringing a record to, like, break it and burn it. That kind of protest always makes me laugh, right? Because did all these people actually own just all these records, or did they go out and
buy them?
Because that's like what current day protests are about regarding like Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, and everyone's like burning his jerseys and burning all this bullshit. But you bought that for a pretty penny, and now you're burning it. And people went out and bought more merchandise just to burn it. I don't think you understand how this works. You're giving them money. Who cares what the fuck you do with it after you take it home? They don't care. That means you can buy more later, So I wonder if it's very similar with the whole disco.
Well, of course, I imagine it is.
Yeah, they went out
and it is.
Bought all the disco albums, and they were all, thank you for purchasing.
One of the guys who was working at this baseball game, young black man, who, by the way, was then feared for his life.
Oh, I'm sure.
His whole thing was he thought, well, this is going to be fun because, they're not going to blow up and burn every record, and I'm going to get to go home with some sweet music.
Yeah.
So he was thinking, I'm going to get some albums, I'm going to go home, I'm going to have this crazy adventure. And in the end, that did not happen. He literally ended up in fear for his life.
Yeah.
Because, it's like the crazy white people at a soccer game.
Yeah.
Whether their team wins or loses, they riot. I don't understand.
Okay.
Somebody please explain that
Girl,
mess
you brought
to me.
me to another point. Everyone wants to throw a fit and scream and pout when a couple years ago the BLM riots, and everyone was like, "Oh, but they're destroying property and businesses." Quack quack. I'm sorry. Any team, San Francisco Giants, their team wins and or loses any game, they burn the fucking city down. And everyone's like, well, they're just sports fans.
That's sports.
Right.
That's okay.
But I'm like, people's lives and social justice doesn't goddamn matter. It drives me crazy, just like, that double standard. But welcome to life.
Right.
Bill.
Right. And so that whole thing, terrifying. And then later, so People Magazine did a whole thing about this. And they also did a follow-up years later, kind of on the anniversary of it, where this man who now, whatever, is an old man, is like, oh, I thought it was kind of a joke, and I thought it'd be fun, and blah, blah, blah. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. You saw you were losing your job, you were all butthurt about it, and you decided to make it a big mess. And then you found that people were listening to you, and you ran with it. And what I love, Rolling Stone magazine wrote that it was your most paranoid fantasy about where the ethnic cleansing of rock radio could lead to white males 18 to 34 most likely that they see disco as a product of homosexuals, blacks, and Latins. Therefore, they're most likely to respond to wipe out the threats of their security. It's like,
yep.
That's, if you're going to call the tea, that's the tea.
Girl.
They saw this music that they didn't have a big chunk of.
No.
I mean, that's not to say there weren't white disco artists. There were. Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Yeah.
Although Casey was it.
Okay.
Whereas the Sunshine Band, mostly black.
Okay.
And people, when they first heard him, assumed he was black. Because
Right.
they heard this disco music. They're like, oh, yeah, cool, another black artist. And it's like, and then they saw his whiteness, and they were like, oh,
wait.
okay.
Well, how about that?
So there were some white artists, and there were some, like the Bee Gees, like I said, who were having success, but the bigger part of it, black, queer, Latinx.
Okay.
And so then you have, of course, one of my personal favorites, the Queen of Disco, Sylvester.
Oh, girl.
So Sylvester
is everything.
Right? First of all, so if you don't know who Sylvester is, Google. And I don't mean the cat. So get your life. But Sylvester, beautiful, beautiful trans black singer, started their career as a man, and then slowly, well, not that slowly actually, transitioned to working more as a female presenting artist.
Right.
I don't believe she ever actually said, I'm a trans woman, whatever. But if you've seen Sylvester,
she was just very queer.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But queer, yes. And had very successful albums, very critically acclaimed albums. But when some big label bought up her contract and was like, ooh, we want this. It's like, but we want you to dress like a man.
Ugh.
And so she did for a minute, and it was like, no.
Yeah.
And one of the things I also love about Sylvester is that Sylvester's backup vocals were provided by Two Tons of Fun, Martha Wash, and Izora. I'm blanking on Izora's last name. Anyway, and they then changed her name later to the Weather Girls.
Yeah, because it's Raining Men.
It's Raining Men, girl.
Uh-huh.
And they made such a splash in the music industry. I can only imagine the straight white populace was going crazy. Because they're like, who dis? Why? Who? First of all, these women are fat. We can't have fat women.
Fat women.
Fat black women. No, we got to get, And then they're singing with some effeminate...
Some creature.
Yeah, it's like their heads exploded.
Yeah.
And they all then died.
Wouldn't that be nice if that's how that
I wish that was how
happened?
that would be awesome if that's how that happened. I'm sorry, I can't.
We
Head
can't.
explodes.
We're not so lucky.
And no more. Yeah. But I love Sylvester. Unfortunately, never got to see Sylvester because, like most people in the queer community at that time, Sylvester died of AIDS. And yeah, I say most because in that era, the queer community was completely decimated.
Yeah.
But kind of jumping back to disco, what was kind of funny to me about that whole thing is when they said, "Oh, disco's dead."
Yeah.
Disco never died.
No.
Disco got repackaged because they didn't like the original packaging, and it then became dance music, house music, electronic. I mean, it's just they gave it different names. They gave it different names, right?
Yeah.
And they rebranded it. And the thing that a lot of people complained about with disco music is they said, that disco music wasn't real music because so much of it was made by machines.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's like, so you're taking away the artistry from... This isn't even made by real musicians. It's made by technicians. What do we have today?
Oh, girl.
I mean, we don't even have people singing anymore, hardly. We have people with their auto-tune and whatnot. And it's like, you can kind of sing at a song and someone will fix it. And make it
girl.
Because all you have to have is like a really good image that people buy.
But isn't that the tea, though? Like, disco, that everyone was like, oh, it sucks. It's dead. It's stupid. Not everyone, but you know what I mean. Yeah. And then so they like... We're all, okay. So they just cut it into bitty pieces and we're like, here are the different genres. Now there's a bunch of sub-genres, you know, that are formed from this.
Exactly.
So a lot of music, like we were saying before this, has its roots in disco, which makes sense. If you listen to anything that has any machine making any sound, think disco.
Yeah, and of course, I was the weirdo in my family because my family...
Wait. I need you to know something. You don't need to finish any other statement. You were the weirdo in your family. Full stop.
What? How rude.
Girl.
How rude. I always like to say I was the normal one, and the rest of those fuckers were
trash.
Trash. Because I was the disco-loving, crazed. I loved the disco music. I bought the disco records. I had records. That's right. I said it again. I bought the disco records because there was no other option. Well, cassettes, I suppose. While the rest of my family was like, ooh, rock and roll. It's like, that's nice. I don't care. Cute. It's so cute. One of the complaints that the guy who was responsible for this whole disco sex movement, one of his complaints was that disco was too well groomed. Isn't that funny? Because rock and roll, you know, you had that whole like gritty, grungy, trashy looking, and then disco, you had all of these people. You had men blow drying their hair,
beautiful,
and wearing nice suits, and women getting all dressed up in their sparklies and their high heels and their whatever. And it's like everybody looked like a magazine. Mm-hmm. So I suppose if you didn't look like that, you probably had some...
Boo!
Right. I mean, I didn't look like that because I was, you know, fat, poor child from the country. But I was also, I was just really praying that disco was around long enough for me to go to the clubs.
I just imagine some fat poor child from the country wearing some patchwork potato sack, just like dancing.
Potato sack? We couldn't afford potatoes.
I know, bitch. What? You just wove some grass together. You were Eve.
Wait. I didn't even think about that. I know. Weaving grass together.
Girl. I do have a question, and maybe you'll know. Is glam rock, that whole genre, does that have any ties to disco?
It really, glam rock was pre-disco?
Well, it was okay.
And I mean, I think it led into it, because you had all of these, and it started out British.
Yep.
Of course.
Sure.
David Bowie. I know. Your first husband.
My very first husband.
You know. David Bowie... of course, was one of those people with the makeup and the androgyny.
Yep.
And I'm sure that the same people who hated disco hated that.
Yeah.
But what's funny to me about that is I was thinking about that this morning. Then you had rock groups like Poison, who, they all wore makeup, had the big hair.
Girl.
And their first album, I was like, who are these unfortunately unattractive women?
Yeah.
They're all dudes.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's also like New York Dolls, fully painted, giant hair.
Love
girl.
the New York Dolls.
Same, but like that whole, and that's.
But yes, that was also pre-disco.
Okay.
And New York Dolls, the lead singer was David Johansen.
Okay.
Who went on to rename himself Buster Poindexter.
Who doesn't love that? Buster Poindexter.
Well, it's a catchy name,
isn't it?
Because he did well with the New York Dolls, and then he was doing well on his own, and then his music just kind of fell off, and so he's all. I'm going to have me a one-hit wonder as Buster Poindexter, which he did. That Feelin' Hot, Hot, Hot song.
Okay.
That was him.
Love that. Love it, Buster.
Right. By the way, I know this is off topic, but I don't care. He's also in probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I've seen some terrible, deeply terrible movies.
Sure.
Ooh, we should also talk about disco movies. But Buster Poindexter, a.k.a. David Johansen, was in a movie called Campfire Stories.
Okay.
It was either Campfire Stories or Campfire Tales. I think it was Campfire Stories with, what's that bitch's name who was in The Sopranos? Siegler.
Jamie?
Yes.
Lee?
Sure, why not?
Let's
Jamie
pretend.
Lynn Sigler? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know her name, but she was.
I
in
don't
Sopranos.
know, but she was
Jamie
the girl. She
Sigler.
played like Meadow or something, but she's not important to the story. And I would have looked it up and done my homework, but we weren't going to talk about this. Anyway, it's trash. It's not scary. It's not